Neighbor, have you ever looked at the price of a bag of soil or fertilizer and thought, why is it so expensive? These days, store-bought compost costs a fortune, and traditional piles take months of waiting, turning, and fighting off weeds and pests. Most of us just don't have the time or the energy for all that. But there is a much easier way. Today, I want to show you the simplest compost method I've ever used. A gentle, beginner-friendly trick that turns kitchen scraps, grass clippings, and dried leaves into rich, dark compost, all inside an inexpensive trash can. If you're ready for the easiest compost you'll ever make. Let's get started. I've tried almost every composting method you can imagine. Cold piles, open heaps, fancy tumblers, even those expensive rotating bins everyone swears by. And every single time, something went wrong. Weeds took over. Pests moved in. The pile dried out, or turned into a wet, smelly mess. And worst of all, it took forever. That's why I came back to the simplest tool in the whole yard. A basic trash can. It sounds almost too simple, but that's exactly why it works. A dark trash can heats up fast, even in winter, speeding decomposition. The enclosed design keeps out weeds, pests, and nosy animals. Oxygen holes let the good microbes breathe, and the locking lid keeps everything clean and contained. The first step is simple. Choose a basic 32-gallon plastic trash can. The cheaper, the better. A dark color works best because it absorbs heat from the sun. Next, drill a handful of holes at the bottom. Not too many, just enough for worms, microbes, and moisture to move naturally between the soil and the compost. These tiny helpers will do most of the work for you. Then drill oxygen holes along the sides. They don't have to be perfect or evenly spaced. This is a low-stress project. Just make sure the holes are big enough for airflow, but small enough to keep pests out. Once the holes are done, place your can in the sunniest spot you have. This trash can is now officially a compost machine. Now that your trash can is ready, it's time to give it the perfect home. You don't just set it on top of the soil. You sink it a little. This simple step makes a huge difference, and here's why. When the bottom sits in the ground, worms, beetles, and all that helpful soil life can move in and out freely, turning your scraps into compost faster than any tumbler ever could. Find a sunny spot. Sunlight will help warm the bin and speed up decomposition. Then use your shovel to scrape away a shallow circle of soil, just deep enough so the bottom few inches of your trash can sit below ground level. Once you place it in, backfill the soil around the outside to secure it. No wobbling, no tipping. Just a snug, steady compost bin, ready to work with you, not against you. Now it's time to bring your compost bin to life. Compost needs 3 things: greens, browns, and nutrition. And lucky for you, most of it is already sitting in your yard or kitchen. Start with your greens, the nitrogen-rich material. Fresh grass clippings, leafy trimmings, or spent garden plants work perfectly. They heat up your compost and help everything break down faster. Next, add your browns, dry leaves, pine needles, cardboard, or shredded paper. These add carbon, balance moisture, and keep your pile from turning slimy. Finally, toss in those kitchen scraps you've been saving all week. Banana peels, eggshells, coffee grounds, carrot ends, wilted greens, all the good stuff. Spread everything out, grab a shovel or your hands, and give it a gentle mix so the layers blend together. It doesn't have to look perfect. As long as you have greens, browns, and scraps working together, the compost will start cooking in no time. Before you close the lid, there's one more simple step, and it makes all the difference. Your compost needs moisture, not soaking wet. just damp, like a wrung-out sponge. Grab your hose or a watering can and sprinkle everything lightly. You'll see the greens and browns settle together, waking up the microbes that will do all the hard work for you. Then, don't forget this part, water the soil around the trash can as well. When the ground is moist, earthworms and soil creatures are naturally drawn toward it. And once they find the entrance holes you drilled at the bottom, they'll crawl right in and become your little composting helpers. It doesn't take long, just a minute or two. But this simple step jump-starts the whole system and gets your compost cooking quickly. Now that everything's mixed and lightly moistened, go ahead and close the lid. Make sure it locks tight. This keeps pests out and keeps the heat inside, right where you want it. And now, your garden job actually gets easier. You don't need to stir it every day. You don't need to babysit it. You simply let nature take over. Inside that black trash can, the sun will warm the walls, the microbes will start working, and the whole mixture will slowly collapse into rich, dark compost. Even in winter, the temperature stays just warm enough to keep the process alive. Maybe check it only once in a while. Maybe add more kitchen scraps. Maybe give it one quick mix with your hand or a small shovel. But otherwise, leave it alone. Because the magic of this method isn't in constant work. It's in trusting the process. A few weeks later, this is the moment every gardener waits for. You unlock the lid, lift it up, and a wave of warm, earthy air rises out of the trash can. Right away, you'll see it. The whole pile has sunk down. The bright greens and dry browns have melted into a soft, dark mixture. If you reach in with your hand, the compost feels warm, crumbly, and alive. You may spot tiny insects, soil creatures, or even a few earthworms moving slowly through the material. Proof that the system you built is working exactly the way nature intended. You won't recognize the kitchen scraps anymore. The banana peels? Gone. The broccoli stems? Gone. Coffee grounds? Mixed into the soil-like texture. What you're looking at now is real compost, the beginning of that rich black gold gardeners dream of. It may not be fully finished yet, but it's well on its way, and far ahead of any cold compost pile sitting out in the open. Once your compost has darkened, softened, and crumbles easily in your hands, it's finally ready to feed your garden. And don't worry, I'll show you the simplest way to use it. The easiest method is to take a small handful and spread a thin layer, about an inch, right on top of your garden beds. There's no need to dig it in. Over time, rain, worms, and natural soil life will gently pull those nutrients downward for you. And when you plant something new, simply mix a small handful of compost directly into the planting hole. This gives young roots a soft, nutrient-rich cushion to settle into, helping them start strong without overwhelming them. You can also scatter compost around fruit trees, berry bushes, container vegetables, and even your indoor houseplants. Everything that grows responds beautifully to a little homemade black gold. And the best part? With each month, each season, each passing year, your soil becomes richer, softer, and easier. Before you use your compost, there's one more thing you need to know. Neighbor. Compost can go wrong. It doesn't happen often with the trash can method, but when it does, the signs are easy to spot. First, pay attention to the smell. Healthy compost smells earthy, like fresh soil after rain. But if you lift the lid and get hit with a sour, rotten, or ammonia-like odor, that means the pile has gone anaerobic. Too much moisture. Not enough oxygen. Next, look at the texture. Good compost is crumbly and dark. If yours looks slimy, greasy, or forms sticky clumps that smear like mud, that's a warning sign. It means the materials are rotting instead of breaking down properly. Also, check for pests. A few harmless insects are normal, but if you're seeing maggots, flies, or an unusual swarm of bugs, something in the pile has spoiled. Usually, too many food scraps or not enough browns. And finally, watch for mold. A little white fungal thread is fine. It's part of decomposition. But green, black, or bright orange mold means the balance is off, and the compost shouldn't be used around edible plants. Luckily, the solution is simple. Add dry browns like leaves or shredded paper, mix in more air, and let the pile recover. Compost wants to turn into something good. Sometimes it just needs a little help. Now that your compost is ready, let me give you a few suggestions. These are some of the plants that work beautifully with this kind of compost. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, and cucumbers respond almost instantly. Their roots soak up the slow, steady nutrients and reward you with stronger growth and bigger harvests. Root crops like carrots, onions, potatoes, and beets also benefit because compost keeps the soil loose, helping roots grow straighter and sweeter. Leafy greens, lettuce, kale, collards, cabbage, absolutely thrive with even a thin layer on top of the soil. And don't forget fruit trees, berry bushes, and even potted herbs. A small handful is enough to wake them up and boost their growth. If you're unsure where to start, just use compost on the plants you care about most. It makes almost everything grow better. Before we wrap up, here's one small trick that makes your compost even better. And almost nobody talks about it. Every time you add kitchen scraps, sprinkle in just a handful of shredded cardboard or dried leaves. It keeps the compost fluffy, prevents bad smells, and helps everything break down faster. Think of it like giving your compost a breath of fresh air. It's simple, it costs nothing, but it makes a big difference. All right, neighbor, that's everything I wanted to share with you today. I hope this little compost trick makes your garden a bit easier, a bit cheaper, and a whole lot more rewarding. If you learned something helpful, give this video a like. It truly helps the channel grow. And neighbor, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your contributions in the comments are what keep this channel moving forward. Thanks for spending some time in the garden with me. I'll see you in the next one.